Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, where we like to review stories that beautiful people such as yourselves post on the internet. We got two stories for you today. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law to leave our family gathering after she broke boundaries? Throwaway account. I, 31 female, can have kids. PCOS. When I met my now husband, 33 male, I was very upfront about it and told him that I never wanted kids, nor could I physically give him one. He understood and didn't want kids either, so we are on the same page. My husband is the only male child out of 7 siblings. My mother-in-law was furious when she found out that we weren't having kids. We tried setting boundaries with her on this and other topics, but she's stubborn. After 4 years of her behavior, we slowly cut off most contact except for family gatherings and such. She was, for the lack of a better term, third-wheeling our marriage. This past Father's Day, the siblings and significant others got together to celebrate at our home. Husband and I hosted because we had the space to gather safely. Mother-in-law and father-in-law get here. It was going fine until dinner. She had been drinking some. One of my sister-in-laws is pregnant, and we were all talking about baby names. Mother-in-law was making a few small remarks about how husband and I would never hold a little bundle of joy, like it was a joke. Then mother-in-law said something like this to sister-in-law: "Give the baby your last name so at least someone might pass on your name," while looking directly at my husband. He told her to stop, and she did for a while. Then we were cleaning everything up. I was in the kitchen with pregnant sister-in-law, and mother-in-law came in and asked how we were. I said, "Fine, how are you?" And she had the audacity to say, "Not that great since husband's name married you." Sister-in-law told her to stop and that she needs to go back outside. But I said, "No, you need to leave. Go home. I don't want you here." I didn't say it in a rude tone or yell, just firmly. I know she had been drinking, which influenced what she said. And I know I was upset, and what I said was in the heat of the moment. But she had never once before attacked my husband's decision to marry me to my face. She did eventually leave with father-in-law after making a big scene in front of everyone about how I was throwing her out. My husband was on my side after sister-in-law and I told him what mother-in-law said. But father-in-law is pissed at me for kicking mother-in-law out and how it made her feel unwanted by her family. A few of my husband's sisters took their parents' side and think we, mostly me, are a-holes. I don't feel like I was in the wrong for telling her to leave, but after a week and a half of sitting with it and talking to his siblings, my husband is feeling iffy about the situation and thinks mother-in-law was wrong, but maybe I should have just let it go because we don't see them often. Am I the a-hole for saying what I did? Edit. Every case is different and every person's body is different. For me, my doctor told me that I was not able to have children at all. I can't have them, no chance at all. And my doctor said it was from the PCOS. But it's not like this for everyone. This is just my case. Edit. Again, I can't have kids. Your case is not mine, nor is your family or your friends. You are not any of my doctors. I appreciate the concern, but it isn't needed. Thank you. Now the a-hole. As someone who has barely any contact with one of my parents as well, let me tell you, you do not have to just stand there and let people insult you in your own home. As hard as it might sound, your mother-in-law is a pretty nasty person if she thinks like that, and I hate people using being drunk as an excuse for stuff they said. Drunk people and small children always tell the truth. She might not have said it straight to your face, but that is what she most likely thinks deep down. Believe me, you don't want to have toxic people like that in your life, much less your home. I am so sorry, OP. One, for the shitty mother-in-law, but also, I read your edits, and I am sorry if people are commenting about the possibility of getting pregnant with PCOS. I have PCOS as well, and while I do have children, after trying for 8 years, I have several friends who also have it, and it is astounding how it varies from person to person. Some can have kids with only minor difficulty getting pregnant. Some can only with a lot of medical assistance, and some, like you, are not able to at all. It's not only the ability to get pregnant that varies either. There are so many other symptoms and things that one person has, but the next one doesn't. Anyone who has it should understand how annoying it is to be constantly told by others, well, maybe if you, or I was successful with. Really, people should know it's not their place to butt into someone else's medical history anyway, unless specifically asked for their advice or opinion. But especially in your case, when you made it very clear from the start that you cannot have kids and that you do not want them anyway, that statement should have been enough. Anyway, absolutely not the a-hole. She made a nasty comment about your marriage in your own home, and you had every right to make her leave. Not the a-hole. If they keep pushing this mother-in-law feels unwanted now, how dare you thing, inform them that you would love to have her around if she could change her behavior, and promise to never again make you feel unwanted. Also, PCOS runs in my family. While my mom could have kids, her sisters couldn't. Two have no issues with their reproductive organs outside of just not being able to have kids, while the third had very bad periods that needed birth control, and an eventual full hysterectomy. OP is right, every case is different. Don't compare your experience with hers. It's extremely rude. After my last post, mother-in-law called me and asked if we could sit down over coffee and talk about what's been going on. I said how awful it is hearing her belittle me and my husband for not having kids, especially when it isn't possible and that our decision won't change. I explained that her attacking my marriage was uncalled for, especially in my own home to my face. She gave a non-apology by apologizing for how I felt and said that she would make the effort to not say rude things about my marriage or stance on children, so that we could have a relationship with her. She followed this apology up with, quote, "You just need to understand that I just want what's best for my son," end quote. A few days later, pregnant sister-in-law called and told me that mother-in-law called one sister-in-law, saying if my husband didn't marry me, she'd have a grandchild from him, and she still didn't agree with us not having kids. I was hoping that she'd be able to change, but she didn't last 2 weeks. I was angry, but I sat with it and read over what some of you said. This is a losing battle with her. There's no forcing her to like me or finding that solid footing. Plus, some of you mentioned that this isn't my battle to fight with my mother-in-law. That's on my husband, and you're right. They're not my parents, they're his. I talked to husband about it, and he talked to his parents and had a firm conversation with them. I wasn't there for it, but father-in-law showed up the next morning to see us. He apologized for his behavior on Father's Day and his part in it. He went on to say that mother-in-law feels strongly that her son should be having children, that everyone should have children, but that it's not any of her business what we do, nor is it his. It was a genuine apology. He said she made me feel unwanted in a family where I was very much wanted. We cried a lot during our talk. As for my mother-in-law, she has not reached out to me at all, and I don't expect her to. Husband and I decided we will be no contact with her. We will talk to father-in-law, have him over sometimes, but we won't be speaking to mother-in-law. We're going no contact with her, including not going to gatherings that she's attending and excluding her from those that we host. I felt awful even having this conversation with my husband about no contact, not wanting to alienate him from his parents, but he brought it up first, which shocked me. A few of you suggested that it was because he was so used to the treatment that he agrees. It's been second nature to him for so long that he just brushed it off. He sees this now, and he's firmly on my side, which I'm grateful for. As for the sisters, one of them is still firmly on mother-in-law's side, but the rest of them, on varying levels, understand why we're going no contact. I think having a third party here gave some insight and helped me see that this isn't a situation where I need to just roll with the punches. And I appreciate those of you who helped us with this. I also was never fertile due to PCOS, and the fertility shaming is a real thing. My situation is different since I chose not to marry until absolutely necessary, and it's never become necessary. But I understand the feeling of people devaluing you because of the childlessness and infertility. There are multiple people that I've had to go no contact with because of boundaries being crossed, and I've discovered that with these people, the only way to win is not to play. Reply: the fertility shaming has always felt like a nightmare beyond reason to me. I understand that to some people, I'm a woman, and in some eyes, I should just, quote unquote, just be able to produce a child, no issue. But that's not how it works. I can't have kids, but it seems like to my mother-in-law that means I'm broken, when that's not what it means. Just because I have PCOS doesn't take away from my value as a human. I'm sorry that you've had to go no contact with people. It's a horrible feeling, but you're so right in saying the only way to win is to not play. That's perfect. It's a hard decision to come to, but when it's necessary, it's necessary. I'm really sorry. I don't know if you were hoping for biological children, but if you were, this just makes your disappointment worse. She's blaming you for something you have no control over and reducing you to nothing more valuable than a womb, when obviously you are so much more. I'm so very sorry that you've got to cope with that. I'm glad you've got the support and love of your husband and that your father-in-law has supported you as well. I hope that you have a lovely and joyful life. Reply: we both knew that we wanted to be child-free before we even met. It's still a shock to hear her give me a grandchild when it's physically not possible. It still feels horrible to be reduced to nothing more than a walking baby incubator. To my mother-in-law, I am nothing more than that. And the one thing that I should be able to do in her eyes, I can't do, and I no longer have any purpose to her. Thank you for the well wishes in life. I hope you have the same. This is a satisfying update. Well done for that decision. I hope your life will be much more pleasant and refreshing without the weight of needless animosity from mother-in-law. In time, I hope she finally realizes how much of a moron she'd been and how she no longer has a relationship with her son and yourself due to her own actions. It'll be far too late. Good riddance. Guys, I want to quickly interrupt this video by reminding you to be an a-hole to the like button by vandalizing your local library and blaming them instead. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not telling my roommate I own the house? Brief backstory. About a year ago, my last remaining grandparent passed away and my father inherited all assets, including a house. I had been saving for a nice down payment, at least 50%, so I could have a lower mortgage payment each month, thus allowing me to save money for travel. When my father inherited this house, which he had no interest in moving into yet, he offered it to sell it to me for slightly below market rate, with the caveat that he and my stepmother could eventually move into the basement apartment. I agreed because they're both incredible people who are not at all invasive and would give me my privacy if they lived there. So, I paid a 60% down payment, financed the rest, and moved in. Present day, about 6 months ago I started considering renting out the finished basement apartment. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, and a small kitchenette, sink, fridge, microwave, but no oven. A friend of mine said his brother was moving to my city and needed a place. He's a brand new teacher and doesn't make great money, so he needed a place that wasn't expensive. I offered to let him rent my basement for way less than market rate, $650, which would include utilities. He readily accepted and signed a year-long lease. Well, a few days ago he asked if he could start paying the landlord directly instead of giving me rent money each month. I was under the impression my friend had told him that I own the house, so I was confused and told him that we don't have a landlord and that I'm the owner. He got very upset and screamed at me for lying for over 6 months and taking advantage of him by making him pay so much in rent. For the record, an apartment similar to one in my house would be well over twice what he's paying me, closer to 3 times for something as nice. He asked how much of my mortgage he was covering, and I said, why does that matter? You're getting a nice quiet place to live, access to a full kitchen and laundry room, and you're paying an amount that you can afford. My personal finances aren't really a factor here. He stormed out of the room and slammed the basement door. He's still not speaking to me. I asked a few other friends and some family members, and most said that I'm wrong for having him cover my mortgage payments. Only a few say that I'm right. So am I the a-hole for having my roommate cover $650 of my $775 a month mortgage? ETA. He has a lease, so I won't be evicting him over this alone. If he does any damage or becomes hostile, I'll look at the eviction process. But for now, he will remain unless he chooses to break the lease, which I would allow him to do if he wants. He also didn't bother to read the lease before signing. The lease clearly states that I'm the homeowner. I didn't trick him or keep info from him. He simply didn't read what he was signing. I didn't get the house for almost free, as some people choose to believe. my father sold it to me for about 75% of its value, more or less as an advance on rent he and my stepmother will pay when they move in here in a few years. We already agreed that they won't pay monthly rent, but will contribute to utilities and groceries at the time. I also made a 60% down payment, so I have quite a bit invested, as well as paying about $1,500 a month out of pocket for taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and so forth. Oh my god, are they freaking serious? What is it they think people do when they rent? They cover the landlord's mortgage payment. You are definitely not the a-hole, and quite honestly, do not renew the lease with this person. How entitled can one person be? I rented an Airbnb for a few months when I was new to the area. More precisely, I rented a bedroom. Yes, I had access to the kitchen, shared bathroom with whoever else were guests, shared laundry room, and a pool, but still bedroom, for more than you're charging for a finished basement apartment. It sounds like your renter is going to get sticker shock when he moves out. Tell everyone who thinks you're ripping the guy off to check the market rate for the area, then kick rocks. Were you supposed to let him stay for free? Again, not the a-hole, but I think I would start looking for smarter friends. Reply: I'm only friends with his brother, and he thinks he's an absolute moron for being mad over cheap rent. He came over here yesterday and basically told his brother what an idiot he is, which made me laugh since I could hear him from upstairs. Not the a-hole. Ask him what their problem is. You were planning on renting it out. You found someone to rent it to, and you gave a lowered rent because it was through a friend. The renting was always going to happen, so why not to an acquaintance at a lowered rent as opposed to a stranger for a market rate? Where is the difference in this other than they get a deal? Am I not allowed to rent it out because I own it? What are you trying to say here? Frankly, it sounds like they're just salty that you had the option and they don't. So it's better to villainize you as a greedy landlord instead of just a poor tenant. Conversely, you can also invite this person to go look at the rental rates in the surrounding area and come back to you when he finds anything lower than what you're offering. Not the a-hole. Why are people looking at it as if he's paying your mortgage directly? What it is you're the landlord and he's paying you his rent. And where that money goes is nobody's business but the landlord's. If the money doesn't go to the mortgage, where should it go? Back into his own pocket? He's a renter, so he has to pay rent. Anyone trying to argue their way out of paying rent is just delusional. Update to the situation. I intended to speak to him over the weekend, but he never returned my text asking when a good time to discuss things would be. So Sunday afternoon, I sent a text stating that I would be entering the basement at 6 p.m. Monday evening. He never replied. When I went into the basement, some of his belongings were there but some weren't. Bed was there, but no dresser or side tables, and the second bedroom he was using as an office has nothing but boxes. The kitchenette was disgusting, the carpets were filthy, and the walls had dents and divots in them in the paint. I left him a note stating that he needs to do some repairs and clean the kitchenette, so as to not attract vermin. Then I went back upstairs. Well, he came back in today, early this morning, and was fuming at me for entering the basement without permission. I told him I had given him more than 24 hours notice, per the lease, via text message before entering his area. His reply was that he didn't get that because he blocked my number. So somehow, it's still my fault for quote-unquote not informing him I would be down there. I asked him if he intends to stay out the lease or if he wants to break it. He said that he's leaving and will live in his car until he finds a new place. I told him that's fine, and that if he has all his belongings out by the end of the month, I won't make him pay September and half of October's rent, as the lease requires, and I'll refund the days that he isn't here. He tried to tell me that he doesn't need to pay that rent because he has 45 days to vacate, but that's only the notice period if he intends to leave. The lease still requires rent for those 45 days, so he's mad about that. I told him I'm being kind by letting him out early with zero financial repercussions. He was also told that he's required to leave the apartment as clean as it was when he moved in, which was spotless since I had it professionally clean prior to his lease beginning, or he would not get his deposit back. He's throwing a tantrum about that too. He seems to be working on clearing the rest of his stuff out. I told him that when he's done, send me a notice in writing, text or email, and I'll send him a refund for the days in August that he isn't occupying the apartment. I have indoor Ring cameras that I turned off when he moved in, but I've turned them back on until he's gone. I don't trust that he won't do more damage. Right now, I've locked myself in my office on the second story, since he's really mad and was throwing things around in the basement and main kitchen. His brother and sister-in-law are also coming over in the next hour or so, because I don't feel entirely safe being alone in the house with him. As soon as he gives me a notice that he's completely vacated the apartment, I'll be changing and deleting all the passwords and codes for all the deadbolts, alarm system, internet, and so forth, so he can't access anything at all. I'm ready to be done with him and to feel safe in my own home again. Thanks to all who read the original post on Am I the A-hole. I'll post any additional updates here on my profile, though I hope this is the end of it. He's going to have a big reality shock when he starts looking for places on his own. He had the sweetest of deals and threw it away for the silliest of reasons. I rented with a friend who was just out of college once. Since she had no idea what was involved in a normal rental situation, it was exhausting to explain everything and calm her down when she got upset. For some reason, she thought that when the landlord did his yearly inspection, we had to move every piece of furniture away from the wall so they could look. I think it's best to not rent to kids right out of college. Sorry you're going through this, and I hope you can stay safe. I'm curious what his brother is going to say when he shows up. What a disproportionate reaction on his part. You gave him a good rate on rent and so many chances to be an adult about this, and he'd rather live in his car? What a tool. He'd probably spend as much in storage unit for whatever time remains of his lease than if he just stayed. More than that probably, as he said he's staying until he finds something better. OP, I hope you're taking pictures and stuff, or just have a plan for some sort of lawsuit involving damages, because a deposit might not be enough to cover such visible damages to your once pristine unit. The former tenant begged to come back, but I declined. Actually, I offered him the apartment for over market value. Market value is about $2,500, and I told him he could come back for $3,300 to make him go away. He also declined my offer. No idea where he ended up. But after some of the names that he called me after I wouldn't let him back in, I don't care. I'm still good friends with his brother. He's a good guy who laughed when I told him about my offer of $3,300 a month. I didn't ask where the former tenant landed. I'm sure he has several roommates, but again, I don't really care. I will not be renting it out anytime soon. I had to do some repairs, so I'm hesitant to let anyone else in. I may let my cousin's daughter move in next year, but I know her, and she's respectful of people's property. Unless my parents move in before then, but definitely no more renting to strangers. I think you handled it all 100% correctly and wish you all the best in the future. Alright guys, that is it for today's stories. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to smash that like button for me and subscribe to our channel to keep listening to these stories. Thanks again for all of your support guys. We will be seeing you in the next one.